Hi guys, I'm Jim and this is Jim's Fix-It Shop, and finally we're going to get back on my 2012 Snapper. Seems like it's been forever. Where we left off last time, I was putting the fenders and the boots in. I got the boots in. I did put a shim on the left side between the end of the hexagon shaft and the bushing, and it took out almost every bit of play I've got. Still turns good, so we're gonna leave it like that. I put the boot on and tightened up the clamp, and I had a viewer. I always get tips from my viewers, and believe me, I appreciate them. This slot in the side of this fender, I always thought was kind of a funny place to put it if you were trying to get to this grease fitting. And you have to grease this or this bushing gets no lubricant. He said, Jim, that slot's in there so you can get a screwdriver on your hose clamp and lock down your boot. You know, and now that you look at it, that does make pretty good sense. So that's what we use. Now, the next thing I want to put on is my spreader. Now, if you have the old style or the new style, they're all the same. I shouldn't say that. They get pretty bad. I don't know, you must run over something and catches that and bends these things. This is another one that I had replaced. This one I think is the one out of this machine. It's not bent much at all, but I don't use them. I have a friend of mine make these up for me. It's a solid 5/8 diameter bar, and it's drilled and tapped on both ends. So I can slide that in at any time and put the bolts in it. The bolts I use are grade 8 stainless steel, and I don't have to worry about them rusting. Now, I do put a little anti-seize lubricant down in the hole, so when I screw that on, it spreads it around on the threads and I don't get it all over my hands. What I'm doing is holding the bolt and turning the rod. Works a lot better that way. Now, I had another comment. Get a lot of people giving me helpful hints, and I can't find his email to give you your name. But he told me that it would be speed things up and help if I told the size of tools I was using as I did this. So from now on, I will really try. This you won't have on your machines unless you make it, but I am tightening this up with a 1/2-inch wrench. This is an important piece. If you have one and it looks like this, please try to straighten it the best you can before you put it in here. That is a spreader. It keeps these flimsy fenders at the right distance. If these are flailed in or out because of this spreader, it's going to put a bind on your axle. It's going to make your axles go through your bushings on an angle, and it's going to wear an oblong hole and prematurely wear out your bushings. So make sure you keep your eye on that and keep it straight. The next thing we're going to throw on here is the brake cable. Now, I've said in other videos, please be careful with this cheap plastic housing. it houses a spring in there. So if you push your brake pedal down too hard, you won't over brake this. I don't know how you really want to say it. You're not going to break it. But if you push your pedal down too hard, the spring will take up the extra force that it doesn't really need to make the brake work properly. Now to get this in, there's a hole and a slot in your chain case. You slide the cable through the slot and push the adjuster through the hole and try to get the nut on the bottom, which looks like it's going to be a problem. Apparently them threads aren't in really good shape. Now they say to adjust this with this threaded tube, you want to have 5/8 of an inch. Let me grab a scale. Once you have this hooked in your brake lever, you want to have 5/8 of an inch from that piece of metal that's crimped on the cable to the end of this plastic housing. I find that's a little over excessive. I don't tighten them that much. Now to get this held in here, again you slide the cable through the slot, push that little plastic thing up through the hole, and you put a snap ring on it. Now we want to be careful with these because you cannot replace these unless you buy a whole new cable. The end that's on the end of this cable is crushed on and you can't get it off, or if you did get it off, you won't be able to get it back on. So hopefully you won't break yours. The snap ring, get around the cable, and you'll need yourself a pair of snap ring pliers to get it down on there. If I can see it without getting in your way. And I'm at the wrong angle. Maybe I should have left that spreader off till I had this on. There we go. It doesn't have to be real tight. It's just got to be on there and keeps it from falling off. The clutch cable is on, and I just have to tighten up a few joints yet. I don't think I'm going to adjust this brake because I didn't move it from where it was when I took it off. We need a 1/2 inch wrench to tighten up these nuts on that adjuster. Let's see. Now I've got one of these universal joints up here. I want to tighten on the linkage. I don't know if I can get you up here where you can see it. It's on the first one that comes down from your shift handle. You're going to need a 7/16 wrench to hold the joint from turning as you tighten the nut with a 1/2 inch wrench. And these don't go on real easy because they're a self-locking nut. Okay, that's tightened. Now, when I get to the part where this tractor's all assembled, I'm going to do it up here on the bench. I haven't yet figured out how I'm going to get it off the bench, so I'm still on a weight restriction from my surgery. I want to go through all the wiring, how to wire everything from the ignition switch all the way back to the starter. This switch, once it's down on its tires, you're not going to be able to see it. I want to tell you what it's for and how to check yours to see if it's any good. If you have a meter, you can turn it on to, get the stuff out of the way, for checking continuity. You can pick up a lot of different meters, really inexpensive ones that does the same thing. It just beeps. Now this one happens to have a pointed probe on one side and a pair of alligator clamps on the other, because this meter, they come off and you can interchange different ends. This is a dual switch. It has 2 contacts in it. And to check these, you clamp on the one contact and touch the one directly above it. Nothing. That's a normally open side of the switch. We'll clamp it on the other side. Excuse me. That side is normally closed. This switch activated by your clutch pedal / brake, and it goes in right back here. You can see a bracket sticking out and it has a square hole in it. That's where this snaps into. We're going to put it in there. It doesn't matter if you snap it in this way or this way. Doesn't really matter. Just getting it up in there is a handful. And getting it out to test it is a problem. There, it snapped in place. Now, what activates this switch? I had a couple viewers say, I took the switch out, it's fine, but it's still acting up. Well, on your yoke, on this particular one, get something in here so I can work this thing. Right over here on the back of the yoke is a piece of, I guess I would call it sheet metal. And it comes up and hits the switch. Now they make it out of a thin piece of metal, so if you push your pedal down too far, you don't crush the switch. That piece of sheet metal will bend. It's kind of like a spring. It'll push it in hard enough to make it work, but it won't hurt the switch. Now sometimes these get weak or they get bent. So if you work in your clutch pedal, mine ain't on here yet, and you can see this thing is coming up, but it's not quite activating the switch, you're going to have to bend that little springs piece of steel so it does activate your switch. And that is, I think, about it on the bottom of this thing. Now I'm going to pause you again. I'm going to call up my neighbor. He's going to run over here and put the front end up on this table so we can get that assembled today. I'll be right back. Okay, got a new pilot bushing to fit in here. And if you remember, the tube on the end of my front end was extremely rusty. I polished that off with a wire brush and painted it. But we're going to slather this baby up the best we can with some anti-seize. So, yep, here come the gloves. I certainly don't want that stuff on me. First, I guess we'll put some inside because it'll be easier to do it now than later. This is wonderful stuff. But if you've ever had one of these freeze up on you, you're going to wish you would have done this. Because I've had some so bad, I've had to heat the pipe inside this main case with a torch and actually melt this to get them apart. Now we'll put a little bit on the outside of here. This is a pretty tight fit, so it's probably going to wipe most of it right off. And we'll put some inside. Now inside this main case on this pipe, I have a set of expanding hones that I think go from 5/8 of an inch in diameter up to 7.5 inches. Whatever, and I think there must be 4 of them that make the set. So let's slide this together and see what happens. I have to put my clamp back on my tube. I can kind of tell where it was. Let's slide this in. Now what I wanted to do before I got to this point was put my tires on the back of this thing. But with all the stuff we packed in here and been moving around, I can't find my wheel flanges or the bolts that hold the tires on. So I'm kind of stuck. We'll have to get the tires on later, I guess. Let's see if we can get this clamp on here. We'll probably have to do some adjusting once we stick them wires up in there a little farther because I don't want that stuff all over. Once we get the mower deck on, we're probably going to have to do a little bit of adjusting on that. And that's all the way in. We'll push the clamp back. Oh, and we got all kinds of this stuff oozing out the back. Well, it shouldn't. Rust up on me, that's for sure. Oh, isn't this stuff lovely? Now we want to put this bracket on that captures the clamp around the tube and keeps the tube in the same position all the time, but it still allows it to turn as you go over uneven ground in your yard. Grab me a wrench. And this wrench is a 9/16. So, if I ever find my wheel flanges in this mess I've got out here, and the bolts for the tires, we'll put the back tires on this thing. But for now, I think that's going to be it for tonight. Next video, hopefully we'll be putting the tires on in the engine and the gas tank and bracket. I'll leave the seat off for now. And we'll see how it goes from there. So until next time, work safe, have fun, and don't forget to subscribe. It really helps. And I noticed about Tuesday of this week, I have hit my milestone of 1 million views. Now, I don't know how many actual different people that is, because I know a lot of you guys watch all these videos. So hopefully out of 1 million views, let's say we've helped 3,000 or 4,000 people actually repair their machines. And that's why I'm doing this. So until next time, keep on snapping, and we'll talk to you soon. So long.